Hi, it's Mining44 here, and today I would like to invite you to a review of the Zion Arms PW9 Mod 1 replica. The replica for the review was provided by Airsoft.pl store. The Zion Arms brand is, let's say, new on the market because they appeared about a year ago, but it doesn't mean that they lack experience, because the brand itself is made by Lancer Tactical, which most players have already heard about, and I will come back to this during the review. Zion Arms offer includes replicas licensed by the American firearm manufacturer R&D Precision, whose design was used when designing the replicas, and their characteristic feature is their appearance, which is simply eye-catching. And the manufacturer boasts a body made of aluminum in CNC technology and a programmable MOSFET. Here you can see the PW9 Mod 1 model, that is currently fashionable PCC, a pistol caliber carbine, here in the Mod 1 version. That is more standard version. Mod 0, for example, does not have a stock, and the charging lever is moved to the front, thanks to which it's closer to the real steel counterpart. But here we have at least a normal amount of space for the battery, so I understand why the manufacturer also released such a model. And speaking of available models, we also have versions with different front lengths, colors and versions for classic AR-15 standard magazines, so there's something for everyone. In today's review, as always, we'll see how the replica is built, what functions it has, we'll look inside and check its performance. But as usual, we'll start with a small unboxing. In a black cardboard box with transport handle and the Zion Arms logo, we'll find Zion Arms patch, MOSFET system programming card in French, mid-cap magazine for 120 BBs, ramrod, and the Zion Arms PW Mod 1 replica. Let's take a closer look at it. The replica with the stock collapsed measures approximately 56.5 centimeters. And with the stock fully extended, its length reaches 64.5 cm, which makes it very compact. The weight of the replica without the magazine is less than 1.9 kg. The replica is made of aluminum, polymer and steel. The entire front, the muzzle device with the outer barrel, the receiver, all manipulators and the stock guide are made of aluminum and its alloys. The pistol grip and the adjustable stock are made of polymer. And apart from the sling mount plate, the inserts in the stock and all screws, pins and springs are made of steel. Going from the front of the replica, we come across an unusual looking aluminum muzzle device. After unscrewing it, we'll see a standard 40mm counterclockwise thread, on which we can mount sound suppressors, flash hiders or tracer units of our choice, provided that their diameter is not larger than about 34mm, because the thread is hidden in the front and the silencer must also fit there. Moving further, we come across the front of the R&D Precision design made of aluminum. In addition to the R&D Precision manufacturer's logo, there is also M-LOK logo. On the sides of the grip there are 2.5 mounting points for accessories in the M-LOK standard, and behind them mounting space for push-dot style suspension. However, they are quite shallow, so not every mount will work. The bottom of the front is slightly profiled for more comfortable hold of the replica, and at the top of the front there is a wrist rail that perfectly aligns with the rail on the receiver. The front itself is additionally blocked by two tabs resting on the body. The receiver, according to the manufacturer's assurance, is made of billet 7075 T6 aluminum and machined on CNC machines. But looking at it carefully, I come to the conclusion that it's rather a casting, which may ultimately be machined, but is not made of one piece of aluminum like Minecraft receivers. Nevertheless, the quality of the receiver and front is at very high. The parts fit perfectly and you won't find any looseness or imperfections. The design itself, based on the R&D Precision products, is quite modern. Sharp lines and deep embossments give the replica an aggressive character. An interesting feature are the decorative steel pins in the receiver that are not painted, but actually pinned into the body, an interesting detail. The only markings on the body are the Zion Arms logo and the one-sided selector markings on both sides. Both the magazine release and the dummy bolt release are enlarged and have a slightly unusual shape. The trigger guard is enlarged and the trigger itself is flat. After pulling back the one-sided charging handle, the dummy bolt moves back and locks in the rear position. Now we have access to the hop-up adjustment. Turning the knob down increases the hop-up, and turning it up decreases it. To release the dummy bolt, press the previously mentioned release button located on the left side of the receiver. The polymer pistol grip has a pleasant-to-touch structure and quick access system to the motor. After pulling the latch at the bottom of the grip, it swings out on a hinge, giving us access to the motor. Going further, we come across a steel double-sided sling mount. Further on the aluminum stock guide there is a narrow polymer stock with a delta marking. The stock has 2 mounting points for push-down sling mount and 3 mounting points for pulling the sling through, and a total of 6 length set points. To get to the battery compartment, you need to remove the rubberized butt plate. On top, it has a small tab that you need to press to remove the butt plate. However, when using it, I found out that the grip is so weak that it's enough to just pull the butt plate. I would recommend being careful not to accidentally lose it. In the stock guide there is a low resistance wiring ending with a TDM plug. Here there is also a place prepared for the battery installation. I used a Special Arms 11.1V 1300 mAh LiPo battery. It fit in the guide without any problems, but I couldn't completely collapse the stock due to the wires. The replica also has a quick spring change system. To get to it, simply unscrew the Phillips screw in the guide, tilt the stock with the guide to the side, and you have access to the spring guide. You need to press it and turn it 90 degrees and you can change the spring to another one. The standard spring is something like M90. The mid-cap magazine for 120 bb's is made of polymer and it's of the same standard as magazines from Special Arms X series or well WE01A. Except the Special Arms magazine fits as well as the factory one, and the Wolf magazine fits ultra tight, probably due to the large protrusion on the back. Therefore, as in the case of Special Arms X series, magazines from the PTW, Classic Army Nemesis or G&G ARP9 should be compatible, but I have no way to check it. The magazine itself sits loosely in the replica and falls out by itself when the magazine release button is pressed. The magazine has a very strong spring installed, so there is no problem with feeding the BBs at full auto. But when fully loaded, it may turn out that you will encounter a fountain of BBs, which happened to me when testing the replica and which I was not able to repeat while recording. I would still advise you to keep this in mind. The replica has 3 standard selector settings: safe, semi, and full auto. Moreover, thanks to the programmable Nebula MOSFET, we can program other firing modes on full auto setting, in which a programming cheat sheet would help if it wasn't in French. Fortunately, programming is very simple. To do this, set the selector to full auto mode and change the setting between it and semi twice. The replica will move the motor and beep, informing that we are in programming mode. Now, by pressing the trigger, we switch between available fire modes, which the replica will confirm with the appropriate sound: semi, 2-shot burst, 3-shot burst, 4-shot burst, 5-shot burst. Binary: the shot is fired when the trigger is pressed and released. And full auto. To exit programming, just hold the trigger press for 2 seconds, which will be confirmed by the replica with a sound. The selector itself works very hard, probably the hardest I've ever seen, so you definitely won't accidentally change it. The flat trigger has a quite long travel and the shot falls almost at the very end, but the reset is very short, so we can quickly fire subsequent shots at semi. When it comes to fit of the replica, as I mentioned it, it's excellent and there is no play between the receiver halves or the front. The only noticeable play is usually on the stock. We know how the replica looks like and what functions it has, it's time to take a look inside. I start disassembling the replica by knocking out the front pin. It fits ultra tight, so it's not an easy task. Now, by pulling the charging lever back, I can slide the upper from the lower receiver. We'll deal with the lower in a moment, let's take a look at the upper first. To remove the chamber and the barrel assembly, simply pull it back. The replica has a polymer rotary hop-up chamber installed. I found a bit of grease on the backing. Apart from that, the backing is quite hard and slippery for a replica of this power, which we'll soon see during the shooting tests. The knob is quite large and soft. The standard brass barrel has a diameter of 6.03 mm and a length of approximately 154 mm. Let's move to the lower receiver. I start by removing the butt plate of the stock. You don't have to remove the stock itself, but I will do it for my own convenience. Then I unscrew the screw holding the stock guide and remove it together with the washer. I remove the guide and the sling mounting plate. Then I pull out the spring guide along with the main spring. The guide has a metal base, bearing and a polymer cap. The main spring is around M90 and has a regular coil pitch. Then I start disassembling the pistol grip. I start by opening the grip, removing the connectors on the motor and pulling it out. It's quite standard, has a quite weak magnet and the manufacturer calls it 19K. Now I have to unscrew 4 screws in the grip and I can remove the grip itself. The next thing I was supposed to do was to knock out the pin on the trigger, but it decided to fall out on its own. Then I knock out the rear pin and it also fell out without a fight. After setting the selector to semi, I can tilt the gearbox and remove the dummy bolt lock button. All that was left was to pull out the entire shell. The selector is screwed from the inside of the body, and here I can also see steel decorative pins. As I mentioned it, the parent company of the Zion Arms brand is Lancer Tactical, so it's not a surprise that their logo is on the shell. I'm only surprised by the amount of small metal fillings on the outside. Found a warranty seal from the Airsoft.pl store on the bottom of the shell. After unscrewing 9 Allen screws and tearing up the very tightly glued seal, we can look inside the shell. Inside I found another strange element of the unknown origin and quite thick grease. 8mm ball bearings are mounted in the shell. The shell itself also has rounded corners of the cylinder, which should reduce the chance of it being damaged in its place. The gears installed in the replica are centered with the gear ratio of 18:1. The spur gear is completely standard. The bevel gear has 4 anti-return teeth. But the sector gear is a bit special. It has a classic delayer, but what makes it special is the fact that it has a small magnet mounted in the lower plate, which we can see thanks to the card. It is necessary for the correct operation of the MOSFET, so if we want to change the gear to another one, we will either have to install the magnet in the new gear on their own, or more likely we'll have to change the MOSFET system itself. The gears have a lot of play, but despite the thick grease, they spin quite well. Another thing I found in the shell was a large metal shaving, but I didn't find a place where it could come from. The replica is equipped with a Nebula MOSFET system, which task is to control the operation of the replica. It eliminates the need for mechanical contacts and cutoff lever. A small microswitch is responsible for detecting the trigger operation. A magnetic sensor detecting the magnet in the gear is responsible for detecting the cycle, thanks to which, despite the weak spring and strong battery, we do not have double shot on semi and all programmable fire modes. Single microswitch on the other side of the unit is responsible for detecting the fire mode. The angle of engagement of the sector gear relative to the piston is completely acceptable. When it comes to pneumatics, the replica has a polymer piston with a full metal jaw. For proper operation, one of the teeth is shortened. A polymer ventilated but without bearing piston head is mounted on the piston. Everything is covered in quite nasty sticky grease. The replica is equipped with a Type 2 aluminum cylinder. Polymer cylinder head with one O-ring and a brass nozzle has a fairly soft bumper. The polymer nozzle does not have a sealing O-ring and its length is approximately 21.23 mm. Tappet plate is made of fairly flexible polymer. When it comes to the seal of the system, without a nozzle there is no problem in passing the syringe test. It loses its seal only after installing the nozzle, either when it's pushed in or extended, which does not surprise me due to the lack of the O-ring on the nozzle. When it comes to the alignment of the shell in relation to the chamber, it's not bad, but it could be better. The nozzle tilts slightly down and to the right, but as you will see in the moment, it does not affect the chrono performance much. When it comes to the stiffness of the chamber, it moves clearly sideways and it could be stabilized a bit. We know what the replica looks inside, it's time to see what its performance is. Chronograph and shooting tests were performed before disassembling the replica on 0.28 gram via Infinity BBs with a hop-up set to them, and on the Zion Arms 11.1 volt 1300 mAh LiPo battery. I fired more shots than usual because I noticed that the power increases slightly with each shot, so that from the initial 0.79 joules or 247.5 FPS, it increased at the end to the 0.82 joules or 254.2 FPS, ultimately giving an average result of 0.81 joules or 250.5 FPS. The spread between the lowest and the highest result was 0.04 joules or 6.2 FPS, and the rate of fire was over 21 BBs per second. Let's see how the replica will perform during shooting tests. At the temperature of about 1 Celsius, shooting from a distance of 30 meters, I had no particular problem with hitting a target with a diameter of 60 centimeters. However, there was a shot that flew under or over the target. I'm sorry for the image from the camera on the replica, but since I had the hop-up set quite high, so that the BBs could reach the target, I had to aim quite low. But I also have 2 cameras so that you can see the hits. From a distance of 40 meters, it was worse and a larger number of shots did not hit the target. The hop-up was so weak that for 0.28 gram BBs I had to set it almost to the maximum, so at 50 meters you can see that the BBs fly with a strong overhop to reach it, and some of them fly above the target. But you can still hit the target from this distance. In these conditions and those BBs, I could estimate the maximum range at about 50 meters, but we are sure to score a hit at distance of 30 to 40 meters. However, I was curious how the replica would work with a softer backing, so I installed a blue ENL backing. On the set hop-up, this change gave me an immediate increase in the power by 0.05 joules or 7 FPS. Interestingly, the spread was practically identical, but I did not observe a slow increase in power, just normal spread. However, a greater range was visible during shooting tests. At 30 meters, every shot hit the target. I missed only once from 40 meters. Even at distance of 50 meters, most shots hit the target. And as interesting fact, I will add that after setting a larger overhop, I was able to hit even from 60 meters, which was previously impossible. Additionally, I still had a lot of spare set on hop up, so bucking would hop even heavier BBs. Zion Arms PW9 Mod 1 is a PCC replica with an unusual appearance. Due to its length and relative low weight, it's very compact, which makes it ideal for CQB games. The external workmanship is at a really high level, which can also be seen by its fit. The design itself and the choices of colors of the replica are very interesting and eye-catching. The profiled front is very comfortable, and what should be prized is the perfect fit between the upper wrist rail and the rear rail on the body. The replica has many functions that facilitate the use of the replica, such as working dummy bolt release, quick access to the motor and quick change spring system. There is enough space in the stock to install a standard LiPo battery, which in my opinion is also a big plus. The Nebula MOSFET system is responsible for controlling the replica, which not only ensures the correctness of the cycle, but also gives us several options for programming fire modes. The replica's performance of 0.81 joules and effective range of 30 to 40 meters is typical for CQB purposes, which is what it was designed for and what it should do well. Among other things, thanks to the ability to quick-fire subsequent shots in semi and auto-firing rate of around 21 BBs per second. However, there is some room for improvement. Starting with the bucking, which I would recommend changing to a softer one at the start, such as the Blue E&L or Blue Mad Bull, both of which will give us a much better flight trajectory, range and will slightly increase the power. There are also some things in the replica that I don't like. From the outside it's only the easy detachable buttplate, but there are more things inside. I was surprised by the fact that metal fillings were found both outside and inside the shell, but I did not find where they come from, so I assumed that they are from the production process and not the result of the operation of the replica. The grease in the replica is quite thick and sticky, and even dry on some gears. There is also a lot of it in pneumatics. I don't have any particular problems about the pneumatic parts themselves, they serve their purpose. Only the piston head could be mounted with a bearing and the nozzle could have a O-ring. While the fact that the replica has a MOSFET system controlling its operation is a plus, the use of chosen sensors is a bit of concern. Magnetic system for detecting the rotation of the sector gear is working properly, but in the event of damage of the gear or desire to change it, we'll have to try to install the magnet in the new one ourselves or as soon as possible replace the system with another one. Likewise, the use of the microswitches to detect the trigger action is a slightly outdated solution, and one may have doubts about their durability, but I will not be particularly afraid of damaging them in a short term. What do I personally think about the replica? This is another interesting proposition on the market for people who are looking for a CQB replica for increasingly available standard magazines, in which several manufacturers already have their replicas in their portfolio. I certainly like the fact that it's fitted perfectly and it's really compact, but we still have a normal stock and therefore we can fit an ordinarily LiPo stick without any special fitting. Personally, I like the regular sling mount because I use 1-point sling and when attached to the stock they make even such a short replica hang quite low. I'm also pleased with the fact that the replica has a built-in MOSFET. It's quite basic and may not provide the possibility of further upgrades, but in its current form it fulfills its purpose and additionally gives us several firing modes to program. Besides, the replica has a very pleasant trigger response and the rate of fire. And thanks to the MOSFET, even with a strong battery and a weak spring, we cannot count on any uncontrolled double shots on the semi. Personally, I would consider the slight unusual appearance of the replica and the fact that the manufacturer has several color variants to choose from as a plus. Many players nowadays want to stand out on the battlefield, and such a variety of choices is definitely a plus in this case. However, I don't like what I found inside. The hard and slippery bucking is not the best at slinging the BBs at such low power, and the shimming is not the best, and the nasty, thick and sometimes dry grease requires replacement. So if you like this replica and would like to get the most out of it in the standard configuration, I will recommend replacing the hop-up backing with something soft. And it wouldn't hurt to replace the lubricants and shim it as well, which will further extend its life. However, if you would like to make something more out of it, you will certainly be happy to know that the replica will accept any standard parts available on the market, so the sky is the limit, so to speak. Zion Arms PW9 Mod 1 at the time of writing this review costs about 275 euros. That's all for today. Let me know how you liked this review and what do you think about the Zion replicas, and if you already use any, how do they work for you. And for now, thanks for watching and see you next time.